Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. I am your host, AP Strange. This is my show, and tonight's show is brought to you by Ahab brand peg legs for all your prosthetic needs. If you're in need of a fake leg, you could do a lot worse than a peg leg. You could probably do better than a peg leg, but if you like that classic style, check out Ahab brand peg legs. For tonight's show, this is exciting and fun because I have a returning guest in Leah Prime. She was on a few months ago and we were talking about all kinds of illuminated texts and incunabula and fun stuff and cursed tomes. And during that talk, we briefly got on the subject of Moby Dick. And it's something that I did want to cover on the show at some point because it's one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book. And it occurred to me that I also talked to Ong's Hat creator and general trickster Joe Matheny fairly often, and he's also a big fan of the book. And I thought getting the three of us together in one place digitally to kind of geek out about Melville, talk about some of the esoteric implications of Moby Dick would be a good time. So welcome to you both. Welcome, Joe and Leah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Um, as I said, I'm excited to do this one because Moby Dick is one of those things, one of those books that just makes me happy to think about. Just the way it's written is gorgeous, and just hearing little lines here and there, or on Blue Sky following the Moby Dick account that just shares little snippets of it, like one line at a time. I love that because it just brightens my day because I'm like, I remember that. But yeah, I'm kind of interested in you both, how your experience of the book and the way it's kind of informed you. Um,
Who starts first?
Yeah. So I'll go first because I think Moby Dick for me it's there's like a small handful of books this applies to where I think I read the first 50 pages of them like a dozen times, right? Like I'd say it's about like Cryptonomicon, Moby Dick. Um, and I first was especially interested in it because there was a podcast called Moby Dick Energy where they were reading a chapter a week and then having someone on to discuss like what was going on in each chapter. And this was back in 2019. And as we all know, the pandemic happened, the podcast kind of dropped off, but that really kickstarted my interest in the work as something much more than just a story about a whale ship chasing down a white whale. And I read it during COVID, like 19, or excuse me, 2020, 2021. And then I went back and I reread it in 2024. Um, and actually had the good fortune of seeing it at the Met Opera earlier this year in March 2025. Um, and I think one of the things I keep coming back to is that to me, like Moby Dick is like barely even a book. It's like this like treatise or like this kind of like emergent system of everything from metaphysics to philosophy to like the superficial story of what's actually going on in day-to-day
mm,
reality. And as I was especially enraptured with this idea of Moby Dick as mystical or visionary literature when I was reading it. And that's like something that I keep coming back to when I go back and return to that book. And I'm like you, I love microdosing Moby Dick on that Blue Sky account that tweets out
yeah.
like a line a day. Um, have have you guys seen, dude, have either of you guys seen there's this like clickhole article called like what I learned in my year on a commercial whaling ship. and when you click on the clickhole article, it's just the entire text of Moby Dick. And I always think of that too. And it's amazing. And part of the reason I always think of that is because Moby Dick is a deep this in addition to being like mystical, it is a deeply funny book. Like there are
Yeah.
parts to it that are just hilarious. And I had no idea that there was like that depth and kind of sophistication to the text because I never read it. Like I never encountered it until just the past few years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the kind of book that finds you at the right time, you know.
Yeah.
Joe, when did you first read it?
Well, I read it, God, probably freshman year of college, maybe
Yeah.
high school. Um, but then my interest was renewed in 2004. I have a friend that's from an extremely wealthy East Coast family. We'll just say that. Um, and they have a place in Nantucket. And I went out to go uh, fishing,
Hmm.
giant bluefin tuna, 100
Oh
miles off
wow.
the coast of Nantucket is where they run. And I met this old guy, a sailor, obviously, in Nantucket. He started telling me the story of the Essex
Yeah.
because that's where the captain ended up after the Essex, after the second boat, because he went down twice. He went down in the Essex because the whale took him down, and
Hmm.
then the like he got another boat after that, and then that went down, and then everybody went, "You're bad juju, man. You can't be a captain anymore." So he
Right.
like ended up being a night watchman, I think, in Nantucket. That's where he
Hmm.
ended his days. So this old fisherman, like almost like from Central Casting, who's
Yeah.
got that, that I'm not going to try to do it. Got that like hard New England accent, and he's telling me the story of the Essex, and I'm like, this sounds kind of familiar. He's like, that's the story that Moby Dick was written. I'm like, oh, okay. So like, I got reinterested in Moby Dick because this guy's telling me this brilliant story about this captain in Nantucket as I'm about to go out 100 miles offshore and snag bluefin tuna. And I'm like, oh, so I started like reinvestigating Moby Dick. This was like 2004 or five, somewhere around there.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
started reinvestigating Moby Dick, and I'm like, this is a fucking occult book.
Yeah.
It totally
This is,
is.
yeah, this is not what we thought it was. It's like it's something else. There's something else going on here. And then it
Yes.
made sense to me, like it's like, Melville couldn't give that thing away when he wrote it. It was like
Hmm.
it's incredible. Like everybody ignored it. And it just didn't do anything. And I started looking at it, I'm like, this is a hidden book. And I started reading it, and I started reading it in a new way. And if you've read my book, Zen, the Zen of the Other, I start out with an examination of Moby Dick from a different perspective than I've seen before, and I apply it to the main character of the book that I wrote. And so that's how much it influenced me. It's like I saw it in a
Yeah.
whole new way. It's like there's so much more going on here. And just like every good myth, like if you read the trickster myths,
Hmm.
especially the coyote myths of the Pacific Northwest,
Hmm.
Coyote always starts out like a funny story that Coyote is trying to do something and does something stupid, and then because he did something stupid, now humans exist. You're like,
Right.
Right.
like yeah,
Like man as product of Coyote's folly.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And literally, like the Coyote myth, is like the reason we exist is because Coyote fucked up one day. And I'm like reading, and I start reading Moby Dick like that. I'm like, there is so much more going on here. It's like you can read at one level, it's like
Hmm.
the everyday life, like you were saying, like and then this thing happened, and then there was a whale, like, and then a little bit down, you can go, and this is about you know uh, eternity and life and death and fate and being obsessed with things and obsession and that's
Right.
another level. And then you get another level down. You're like, there's something more going on here. So I
Hmm.
think I think Melville like really tuned into something.
Yeah. Of
And what happens when you do that a lot of times is most people read it and they don't get it, or they
course.
or they're
That's why it's a
frightened by
cult.
it. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I didn't. I tried to read it in high school, and it was like a
yeah,
secret shame of mine for the longest time because I was allowed to choose a work of literature to write a book report on. And And, I always like to challenge. So I'm like, well, I've heard Moby Dick is a little tough, so I'll read that one. And I could not get into it. And I kind of like cheated. I ended up buying the Cliff's Notes. And it was the only time I ever cheated on a writing assignment in school
Hmm.
or any assignment. I never, I would either fail or pass. But that time I actually like used the Cliff's Notes. Now, for my younger listeners, before the internet was such
Cliff's
a thing,
notes were.
Yeah.
there
These
were
sacred
books you
yellow
could buy.
books.
Yeah, secret yellow books that weren't allowed. Uh, but the I came back to it in my adult life partly because there were always so many references to Moby Dick in the X-Files. And it was always like this constant reminder that like I cheated this one time and like I was maybe cheating myself because I
It's the
love the
telltale
X-Files.
heart beating beneath the floorboards, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's Poe's telltale heart going on every time I watch the X-Files. So I finally got around to reading it again, and it was at a time in my life where like I had been laid off from a job and had kind of gone from job to job a little bit, and
Sure.
they seemed like they were getting successively crappier. So when I picked it up and was reading like Ishmael's story of like kind of being a layabout in New York and deciding like, I think I'll just jump on a ship and go whaling for a year, like,
Whomst among us, right?
Yeah, some
right. And
crazy people do that.
yeah, but I mean, it was kind of him finding himself in that part of the story. And at the
Oh
time,
yeah.
I was trying to like find a career, like something I could, this something steady instead of this like succession of crappy temp jobs and stuff. And just really dug into it and read it straight through. And there is a transcendental quality to the work, but also kind of a transformative one. And I felt like that was just the right time for me to actually really read it.
Yeah,
So
to me it strikes me very much like I'm very fascinated with this idea of like art as initiation, right? And I say this as kind of an avowed Wagner fanatic, where like watching The Ring is an initiatory experience, sitting through these like 22
Yeah.
hours of Teutonic opera. Like you are fundamentally, if you're doing it right, you're fundamentally transformed at the end of watching this. And this is the objective of Wagner with the Ring cycle.
Hmm.
And I bring this up because I think of Moby Dick in a really similar way. Like you're talking about AP, like this idea, there's this it is an initiatory text for the reader. Like if you are reading it the right way, and I have no problem saying that there is a right way to read this book, like it will fundamentally initiate and transform the reader so that, much like a psychedelic experience or a spiritual emergence experience where they are on some level fundamentally refactored after reading this work. Like I do think it's like an initiatory text.
I think it's something you have to read a couple of times during your life, and like every time you do
100%.
it, the older you get, a different thing comes out of it. It's
Hmm.
like
yeah.
it's multi-layered. And
Yep.
so that's what I was trying to describe is like there's all these layers. So like of course we all had to read it in high school, so we read at it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
And
I
we
got to get
understand the
through this
like
and write a
linear
report.
chronology of
Yeah,
the work and like sort of
exactly.
the
Yeah,
event reaction response
yeah,
process.
yeah. So you get that part out of it and you get that out of the way. And then hopefully something happens to you like happened to me, like you get cornered by some salty old dog
Yeah.
who's like, I'm going to tell you the story of the Essex. It's like, yeah, go for it, man. I love storytellers, and I'll sit and listen to a good storyteller forever. And then all of a sudden, like the light went off. I'm like, wait, this is the Moby Dick story.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what it was from. Yeah. And I mean, he didn't really talk like that, but I can't do a hard New England accent. So you just have to play with that in
I
your
could take a whack
imagination.
at it.
Yeah. but, it's like, and then when I came, it literally like, and then I went back to it again in 2014 or 15 when I
Hmm.
was at the Zen monastery in Big Sur, and I read Moby Dick again, and I had another deeper enlightenment. It was like, oh wait, oh, and then that's where I was inspired to write Zen. Like I started taking notes for that
Hmm.
book at that point. I didn't write it till I think 2019 or 2020. But I started taking notes and keeping notes, and like like you noodle it for a long time before you write sometimes.
Hmm.
And it was about, and Moby Dick started the noodling for that book. I'm like,
Sure.
there's something about this book that it keeps coming back to me. Either I go back to it, or it just like it thrusts itself into my life, into my presence by crazy people in Nantucket talking to me. Um,
Yeah.
which that I mean that to me that's magic that happened.
Mhm.
Because
Right.
why did he
Mhm.
walk up to me of all people and just start talking to me? Because I
Right.
looked approachable, I guess.
Yeah. I guess I was meant to find it at the time I did because it was just, I was in a bookstore and there was a paperback copy there um, for really cheap right at the front door. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like I always kind of wanted to come back to this. I guess it's time now, you know? It's like $3. All right, you know. So it has a way of appearing in your life, I think, and being important to the moment.
I
Uh,
think a lot of books do. I mean, the intersection of life and books, for me at least, because I've been a bookhead my entire life.
Same.
Um, there's always been like something that, like, I'm sure you've heard me tell the story of Philip K. Dick and Valis, and when I went
yeah,
looking for it in '84 or whatever it was out of print,
Hmm.
and people at the used bookstores in Chicago were like, I've never even heard of that book. It's like
yeah,
nowadays Phil Dick's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
because
He was the most prophetic voice of science fiction,
yeah,
really.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he wrote all the movie hits without even knowing
Hmm.
that's what he was doing.
Yeah, I
But
am. Oh,
that's those intersections mean something.
yeah,
They
yes.
mean something,
Yeah.
and Moby Dick keeps intersecting in my life, so I'm cool with that because I love it.
yeah,
Sometimes I think of these works almost with as like comorbidities because when I'm thinking, both of you jogged my memory a lot about my experience encountering the works, and both times I read it right after reading Blood Meridian by Cormac
Ooh,
McCarthy.
yeah.
And it's sort of in my head, there are a couple of these like binary star books where like I think of like them in like dyads. Like one is like The Magus by John Falls and The
Mm-hmm.
Secret History by Donna Tartt. Like those two
Mm-hmm.
books in my mind are always like really linked. In Blood Meridian and Moby Dick to me are also deeply linked works. I mean, superficially they're similar. I know when Blood Meridian came out, it was also not a commercial success. It was sort of just dismissed out of hand as being
Right.
super violent and like not worth
Right.
reading. And it also is sort of this treatise, like this expansive, like totalistic broadcloth of everything from philosophy and metaphysics to theology to like what levels are you actually reading the book at, and also like at the heart of it too is this these are like both not, this is obviously not a comparative literature discussion, but both of these works are also distinctly American because they are
yeah,
deeply about like I mean frankly like the blood that soaks through so much of American history and sort of grappling both with Western expansion and also with like the creation of the economies on the East Coast through the whaling industries. The sort of there's a distinct and unique kind of sanguinated Americanism associated in my mind with both of these works. And so in my mind, they're both also in a way kind of Bildungsromans. Like there's sort of these stories of like transformation and growth and maturation by the narrators. And they're both phenomenal. And they're in my mind, I think they're always linked because I read them both like one after the other both times I read them.
yeah,
You want to hear something synchronistic? I didn't
Yes.
even think about this till now. I mean, there would have been no reason for me to think about it. So I read Moby Dick in Big Sur 20. I want to say 2014,
Hmm.
and then that set in motion the process of writing Zen. And after I finish Zen, I'm usually kind of exhausted after I finish a book,
Sure.
and then I do something for myself, like go back and read a favorite book. It's like going and getting your favorite
Like visiting an
slice
old
of
friend.
cake. Yeah,
Yeah.
the book I read after Zen was published, Blood
Hmm.
Meridian.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Such a good book.
yeah, oh
Like,
yeah. But
oh,
I mean,
every
that's what I
time I
have a
read
taste
that book,
for. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, every time I read that book too, like I feel like in a way I feel like, and I could say the same thing for Moby Dick, though I haven't read it as much as I've read Blood Meridian. I feel like every time I read Blood Meridian, it's a different book,
Oh yeah.
you know? Right? There are, and I've read it closely, and I feel like every time parts of it emerge that I'm like, I don't remember this from the last time I
Yeah,
read this, or like
yeah.
it's also I think an initiatory text in a different way, but very similar.
Hmm.
Moby Dick is like that for me, which you made me think of something when you said the X-Files, because I
Yeah,
remember um, Scully was always talking about her and her dad. Did you see the Moby Dick miniseries that came out with William Hurt?
I did not.
And
No.
I think I want to say I can't think of his name, but one of the people that was in Lord of the Rings, one of the elf, the guy that played the blonde elf. I can't think of his name. Yeah, you don't know either, but you know if you. I can't think of his name, but Jillian was in that. She played Ahab's wife.
Oh wow.
When
Incredible.
she
Okay.
yeah, when she came on screen, I just started laughing, and like my friends were like, "What are you laughing at?" I'm like, "Apparently you weren't an X Files fan."
Yeah, like Scully, it's you.
It's like
Yeah.
she belongs in this movie. I wonder if they did that on purpose.
Well, I always thought it was funny too, because the whole thing with that in the X-Files was that Scully's father, she would call him Ahab
Yep,
and he would call her Starbuck.
yep.
And it's
Mhm.
like it's kind of weird considering the relationship of Ahab and Starbuck in the book to have that be like a father-daughter thing. Um, but it's like, of course, they ended up having a disagreement where because he didn't want her to go into the FBI. Like,
Right.
but but yeah, it's the point I always like to make with the X-Files with that is there's one episode where actually the dog named Queequeg
Quick,
meets
quick. Yeah,
meets an unfortunate end.
yeah.
Um, but they end up stranded on a rock in the middle of the lake and they're almost freezing to death. And Scully compares Mulder to Ahab and his
Mhm.
monomaniacal quest for the truth. And
Yeah.
it's something I've pointed out to like people that are all about disclosure and
Oh yeah.
people idolizing Mulder, and you're like, no, he's not the pinnacle. He's a cautionary tale in a lot of
Hmm.
Yeah,
ways.
yeah, 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 yeah.
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 I
Um,
mean, that is one level of the story. Orlando Bloom, by the way, is the guy's name I was thinking of.
oh,
Um,
okay.
in that series, it's on Amazon if anybody wants to watch it, but it's not bad. I mean, nothing's going to stand up to the book, but it's not bad.
Right.
Um, Bill Hurt's a good actor. Jillian's a good actor. So the people are all good actors. Um, but the thing about obsession, I
Mm,
understand that because like any person who works in tech, I'm a little bit OCD,
yeah.
Hmm.
and I've been on those quests before. Like, I know I can get this code to work. It'll work. It'll work. Like and it will work eventually. But people have said like you're being kind of Ahab about this, dude,
Yeah.
or you
Hmm.
need to unclench your keister. But we all have it in us to do that, and to get hooked on something and lose sight of why you started,
Yes.
which is,
Yeah.
that's one level of the story of Ahab, but it's bigger than that. But like that's at least that's the entry level of like
Mm,
Hmm.
there's this guy who's obsessed and he's putting himself and everybody around him in danger.
Yep.
And
yeah.
for what?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, he's had an experience, right? Like to go back to this idea around disclosure. I one of the things I always think about when Keel in the Eighth Tower talks about like people have experiences and then or alien encounters or encounters with God, and then like the hallmark of them is that they then become so sort of doggedly obsessed with these experiences that they destroy their entire lives. They destroy their
Yeah.
careers, their family relationships, they get divorced. um Certainly as someone who's had a front row seat to huge amounts of this in UFO culture, right? Seeing sort of the monomaniacal obsession with ufology or with experiencers, and like, I'm only half joking when I say you could probably write a compelling paper about like Ahab as experiencer, right? He goes through this thing with Moby Dick and
Yeah.
then comes so like obsessively focused on it to obviously ultimate cost, including huge amounts of suffering of other humans. And it is also like similarly driven to destruction, like to kind of consummate his quest, right? To find this whale or to
Yeah.
resolve like the truth or what actually happens.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the white whale is like a spiritual force, and they kind of go
Hmm.
into a lot of detail in the book about this. And also, it's uh, getting back to what we mentioned about Melville's sense of humor. There's a point in the narrative where Ishmael is shuddering to think that people might consider this all an allegory when he's trying to tell you a real story about a real white whale. You
Yeah,
know?
Yes.
yeah.
But on both levels it works because it's a
Hmm.
traumatic experience. It's a literal sea monster, you know.
Yeah,
Hmm.
It's a leviathan from the deep.
yeah.
Um, and there are like supernatural qualities about it because like the story of the Essex, like that gets told within the story as so it's almost like a meta narrative, even
Yeah,
though it's
yeah.
based on it. He includes it in the book. It might have been in one of the footnotes, but either way, um, it's the supernatural quality of whales to come back around and seek revenge, or
Well,
the
we've been
people
seeing
that
a lot
that
of that lately, haven't we?
right,
Hmm.
or the whaler coming back and finding, their stamped harpoon
Yeah,
that in the whale that they just killed, and
yeah,
they've the guy that goes to Africa for 2 years and goes deep into the interior of the continent and then comes back out and then goes on another whaling ship and finally finishes off the whale that he hit before,
yeah.
Um, just like the odds against that happening for these two entities in the world to just converge again, yeah, yeah. There's a lot to unpack
Oh,
in
yeah.
that book.
It's interesting because like I would never in my wildest dreams, because I do hunt and I do fish. I would never in my wildest dreams do anything against a whale.
Yeah,
It just doesn't feel right,
Hmm.
right? So to add that to it, somebody who becomes obsessed with, to me it's like it's like on the superficial level at least, it's vengeance.
yeah,
Hmm.
Like, you took my leg and I'm gonna fucking get you, motherfucker. Like,
right.
Yep.
really, that's what it becomes. And then he loses his way. Like anybody who gets that caught up, it's like if a president were to run again and get reelected just so to get even with all his enemies. It's like that,
It's
Yeah,
yes. Excellent thought exercise.
right.
yeah.
Good thing that hasn't happened.
Well, see, that's
Ah,
the funny thing too, is it's like I would I have a half-formed thought about how Moby Dick is kind of like a warped mirror version of Frankenstein in a way. Like there's still that like kind of drive and obsession, but there's way more of a revenge element in Moby Dick.
oh yeah. Oh,
But
oh,
also
I see what you're
similar,
saying. It's like he's the Dr. Frankenstein, and yeah,
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 yeah, and uh yeah, the drive is a little different, but it's also similar in the respect that yeah, Moby Dick is a sea monster, but he's also a sympathetic figure because he's just living his whale life out there,
yeah,
Hmm.
his best whale life. And
yeah,
Ahab is kind of the monster of the
yeah. Oh yeah,
situation.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
um,
Yeah,
but
the man versus nature, right? Like
yeah,
at the heart of
right.
it too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's a half-formed thought, but I don't know. I guess I've been thinking of Frankenstein lately, just having watched the recent movie. And then,
Oh,
it
the
was,
Del Toro
yeah,
one.
yeah.
mhm.
That wasn't bad.
It was all right. Yeah, he
Yeah,
certainly did his own thing with it, which was fine. I think people should.
yeah.
But yeah,
The other thing that always struck me is the oceanic experience and the depth and the deep. So you've
right.
got the Leviathan
Yeah.
Mhm.
or Tiamat. There's another. I love
Oh
Tiamat.
yeah,
Yeah,
Tiamat.
yeah. So the whale represents that on one level of the subconscious, the deep
Mhm.
subconscious, and
Mhm.
the things that will come back at you, which are usually things you need to face. And it's usually issues that you've created for yourself that you haven't faced that come back at
Mhm.
you, which is what Moby Dick is for Ahab. It's an issue
Unresolved
that he
trauma.
it's an issue that he created. He started the shit.
Mhm.
Because like you said, the whale was just living his whale life. And then along
Yeah.
comes this dick in a boat and sticks him with a harpoon. It's like
Yeah.
loses the leg out of it. It's like, oh no, I got to get the last word. I got to be the one
Yep.
that wins.
The
And it's
whale is
like,
the bad guy here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, during Melville's time, that was just, we needed the oil. We needed to cook down these whales to make the
Oh yeah,
oil or
I'm not like
uh,
shaping my finger at the past, but like we don't need
well,
it
no, I
these days.
mean,
And so
he does. It's like Leo was saying earlier, that's like the bloody history of
yeah.
America too,
Yeah.
is, and the legacy of that is that we nearly drove a lot of those whales to extinction,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like so I don't know that Melville could have known that in his time, but it seemed like he had some inkling of it.
He at least
uh
probably could observe the horrendous butchery of the whole thing,
yeah,
Mhm.
because it's
yeah,
not. I've seen pictures and watched videos of the slaughtering of whales, and it's not pretty at all.
No.
no,
I mean,
yeah, and he describes it in the book, you you know what you're
yeah.
getting
I mean,
into. Yeah,
salmon's having been on a salmon boat. I literally was up to my hip waders in blood, at certain
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
So it's an amazing, weird thing that does
yeah,
weird things to you. If you just like you get used to it after a while, you're like, but then you stop and think, like, I'm wading through hip deep dead bodies and blood
Mhm. Yeah, this
yeah,
gore. Well, and
and
um
gore. Yeah.
and two thoughts come to mind. Like one is that, while he's writing Moby Dick, right, we're doing Western expansion in the United States. And what I think is interesting is there's so many exemplars of man taming nature or confronting nature and destroying it in this time period. But like Moby Dick is counter to this, where nature actually fights back, right? Where nature is substantial enough to like,
Hmm.
respond to man's actions of violence. But the other two is, not that I mean, there are chapters in this book devoted to sort of the gore, like the rendering and the Fletchers like stripping away the blubber from the whale's body, and then like kneading all of it into oil, and it's all this like very visceral kind of writing and recounting. Um, and I also think too, to me, it touches on this even back then it feels like the gore of this activity and the fundamental violence of it would have been a foreign thing to anyone who was consuming whale oil like along the coast or
yeah,
on the continent. Similarly to kind of now like everyone's conception of steak or chicken
Hmm.
is coming in little styrofoam carefully and cleanly
Hmm.
wrapped containers rather than a direct encounter with like the tremendum of death that is happening to
Yeah.
just provide like basic sustenance or basic heat and light.
yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
and I
it
mean
really,
Melville talks about the human cost too, all the men that
Mhm.
die at sea in the
yeah.
process
Yeah.
that never even get an obituary. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
They probably didn't even know they went overboard until later.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
I
I experienced that. There was like when we would come in close to shore, we had people that would jump overboard when I was on the fishing boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they felt like they were captured. Like I didn't sign up for this. Like, well, you did.
Yeah.
oh wow.
But they just didn't like. They had a fantasy in their head. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going sailing. It's like, no, dude, you're locking in and doing some hard work for couple of months,
Mhm.
and
Right.
you're not going to see land until you're done. And then we would come in close to shore because we would they had this whole thing set up where like we would offload the fish from the boat into the processing plant
Right.
through this giant tube, and it was like this crazy stuff. And then people would go overboard, and then you wouldn't even know. Nobody would know until like later that night. You like look around and you'd be like, oh, there's a couple of empty bunks, huh?
Yeah.
Guess somebody quit.
Well, then do they not get paid? How do they get paid?
How did they get home? Because
Right. Yeah.
where we were, there was no roads that went into where we were. It was so remote that you
Yeah.
had to get a seaplane or a boat to get
Mhm.
home, and
Yeah.
it was like $1,000 to
Oh, this
get
is
back to the
Alaska, right?
anchorage. Yeah, this is in Alaska, in the middle of
Yeah.
BF nowhere,
Yeah.
and But yeah, they would just overboard
Wow.
and then figure it out when they got to shore.
Yeah.
And then I talked to the captain. He's like, "Yeah, that happens every year."
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how do
Yeah,
you know they're alive?
it's like sitting a meditation retreat, right? And it's just baked in that every now and then someone's gonna have like a total break.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like it happens.
yeah.
Um, it's funny. A good companion to Moby Dick. I know we've talked about the Essex, but like I think the Philbrook book on the whaling ship Essex that came out. I think they made a movie of it, but the book came out about 20 years ago. Um, and it's sort of this, it's like it's historic nonfiction, and he's recounting um, not just the whaling industry, but the Essex specifically. And what always blows my mind to consider is that these terms at sea could go multiple years, right? So, husbands would leave their wives or families or whatever. And one of the things, for some reason, my brain always resolves down to this because it feels like receiving a transmission from deep space. This idea that like mail could still work at this time, because there's a part in this work by Philbrick about the Essex where he talks about how they're sailing around and there's a postal box on this like remote island in the South Pacific or something, and they
Yeah.
would drop their mail there and then they would check for mail there, and they would actually have letters like for the crew or for the captain that was available to be picked up. And like, the letters might be 6 months or a year old, but there was still some kind of communication happening between the mainland and the ships at sea, and it was traveling through this precarious, but to me it feels almost divinely altruistic, right? This idea that ships were picking up and dropping off mail to be able to enable this communication. They were still getting a little bit of information from home. Um, but I think about this a lot because I think the other thing, in addition to the gore, that's so foreign to our experience or to many people's experience is just the sheer remoteness of what's happening, both for the narrator and for the crew, that they're on the ship for a very long time. There's some stopovers, but largely they're self-contained and totally cut off from whoever's at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the closest literary simulation we get to that now is, honestly in science fiction, right? Where we're talking about like intergalactic travel and not talking
Yeah.
to our home planet or whatever. But that this was in any sense a lived reality to me, like blows my mind, right? That like these crews would go out for years and then hopefully return. Maybe they die, maybe they get swept overseas, maybe they wouldn't catch anything.
Right.
And then just come back to their families, right? And I think, kind of jumping rails here to another subject as well. And I was so struck by this when I read Moby Dick too, was the threat of Quakerism in the book. Because like Ahab is a Quaker, if I recall correctly.
Mm.
And it's so interesting because we think of the Quakers as being so pacifistic, but then engaging in this like pure violence for financial gain, and for need too. Like, let's be real, like this is not a frivolous pursuit. Like, it was desperately needed on the continent. Um, but yeah, I mean, these are kind of just like disparate thoughts, but I think a lot about the male that is discussed alongside the Essex, and I think a lot about like the Quakerism and sort of the not just the direct religious undertones, but like the metaphysical undertones to the work as well, a lot. As being very kind of foreign things to like the contemporary reader, like things we don't typically encounter, certainly in our lived experience.
At least in the mainstream, because like
Right.
one of the things that I found out, like when you're way up north by the North Pole,
Hmm.
is one of the things that you do if you're on a boat that's going up there and coming back is you drop off and pick up mail.
Hmm.
So like if you dock at like some little village, they have like, can you take this mail to the next place up? Yep, okay. And then like you pick up some mail, take it up, take it down. And it
Yeah.
reminds me of I don't know if anybody's here old enough to remember FidoNet, but this was the one of the old original BBS systems, and this was when long distance was still a thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the FidoNet would like be programmed to like your computer. Like I ran one of the computers in my bedroom, it would dial up in the middle of the night when the rates were the lowest to the
Sure.
closest next area code, and it would dump mail and it would pick up mail.
Oh
And then
wow.
the next thing that would happen is like that computer would call to the next one and call the next
Like a
one.
baton
It
passing.
was a baton pass, yeah. It was
Yeah.
the same thing we were doing with mail. I'm sure that they were doing back then. They were
Hmm.
picking up and dropping off mail. And like everybody was just doing it. Nobody was getting paid to do it. There was no postman. It was just a thing you did. Like, yeah, I'm going that way. Yeah, sure, I'll take that.
Hmm.
Everybody
The
just kind of
daisy
like
chain of servers.
daisy chains
Yeah.
of servers, yeah. But like
Yeah.
that's what they were doing back then with mail, you
Hmm.
know?
It was
And
working.
oh
Like that,
yeah,
that's what always blows my mind is like it worked enough that people would actually get mail from home and mail
yeah,
from the ship would actually
yeah,
make its way back there. It would take
yeah,
a while, but it
yeah,
would still happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
the server to server took a while too. Like I sent an email to my friend in Oslo, and I was very stunned. He got it in like a week, and I was like overjoyed. Like that's quicker than if I would have sent an airmail.
Incredible.
Only a
yeah.
week.
Well, it's wild enough to think back then of like the Pony Express and stuff like that,
Hmm.
but when you're talking about an ocean in the middle of it and just ships just kind of cooperating and knowing that this is just part of what you do when you're out at sea.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
just like it's expected of you, and you would never say no
Right.
because
Yeah.
there's an
'Cause-
unspoken rule that we're all out here together on some level.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
I
if you see
mean
somebody in a
that's
boat, like if you see somebody in a rescue boat, you stop and you get them.
yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean I think also within what you're talking about, Leah, is this concept of being away from home for so long and an uncertain future. It's like you're implicitly trusting the captain of the ship.
Hmm.
Because the captain holds the fate of all of the crew in his hand. So I think that speaks a bit to the terror in this one is like the crew starts to realize how mad Ahab actually is,
Yes.
and they kind of realize, oh wait, we're all kind of expendable, and
Yeah,
Starbuck is there just kind of to act as his as the voice of his conscience,
yeah.
um, in some ways. Yeah. Um,
We've got a guy running the boat who DGAF, man.
Hmm.
yeah. Yep. But I mean, Ishmael, the narrative voice of Ishmael talks of this as uh, like the obsessive part of it as being kind of I guess it's kind of like an egregoric spirit that has displaced the actual Ahab, and he's just kind of a vessel for
Hmm.
this hatred and revenge trip going on, at a certain point when they really begin to realize how much how much this mission depends on Ahab getting getting back at the whale, you
Yeah,
know.
Hmm.
Yeah,
and they're just along for the ride.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think it's pretty cool too that before you're at the end of the book, you already kind of know what's going to happen, right?
Hmm.
He doesn't even really allude to the fact because he tells you about the Essex and he tells you about other stories. Like you know that the ship isn't coming back. The Pequod's not making it back to Nantucket
Hmm.
well before you get there, and it doesn't matter because he's not spoiling it for you. He's laying it all out and telling you the story of what went down, you know. Um, yeah. Um, but I mean, within that, it's almost like that's the bookend of it is the Nantucket part and the final showdown, and almost everything else in between is like meditative variations and like different essays on whales, on whaling, on life at sea. Um,
Yes.
and one chapter in particular that I like is on the whiteness of the whale,
Hmm.
which I had referenced before we started recording because it was like a little synchronicity that Joe, you had sent me the opening line to that chapter because that was on the Blue Sky bot today.
Yeah,
And I had already queued up because I had to do some driving today. I had queued up an audio version of that I was going to listen to while I was driving around. And I'm like, oh, that's that line again, you know? And then as I was listening to it, I drove past a row of cars that were all white of different makes and models that were all
Hmm.
parked on the side of the road, which I thought was kind of strange. But um that's one chapter I really liked because uh, he's getting into all the symbolism of what whiteness is, and I mean you can take that any number of ways, but he's kind of talking about the divine. To me it's kind of like how the divine and the sublime is also the awesome and the terrible and the frightening,
Hmm.
you know, and they're both kind of the same thing. And the line that you had sent was, you know, we know well what the whale means to Ahab, but it means something very different to me.
Hmm.
And he's like, it's an ineffable thing, and it's almost a shame to try to express it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So just bear with me. And then it's this long, long like thing, exploration of what whiteness is and why is white so terrible on a whale when it's
Hmm.
so nice on something else, you know? So yeah,
Yeah, there's this, it's funny because that part of the book came to mind too, like as I was kind of thinking about what we would talk about tonight.
Hmm.
And like talking about almost the unnaturalness of the white whale, right? Like there's this line, I'm looking at it right now. All deified nature absolutely paints like the harlot, whose allurements cover nothing but the charnel house within. And when we proceed further and consider that the mystical cosmetic, which produces every one of her hues, the great principle of light, forever remains white or colorless in itself,
yeah.
Hmm.
right? Like this the unnaturalness
Hmm.
of the white whale, and sort of, obviously, yeah, we know what Ahab thinks of this, but just how kind of like an aberration of nature it
Yeah.
is to have just this colorless beast in the sea.
Or
Yeah,
in
and how
general, it's like the whiteness of things that should not be white is
Hmm.
usually how ghoulishness is portrayed.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, the deathly pallor
the
and
deathly
yeah,
those
pallor,
yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting.
like, or the whites, the tall whites.
Hmm.
Speaking of aliens, um,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean
or
that's very interesting. But what really puzzles me is like how this book fell through the cracks. Like nobody cared.
hmm,
It was years
Yeah.
later that people cared, which I'm glad they finally did. But like it just like it was like it fizzled.
I have potentially a very dumb question, but was it serialized? Like was it published in serial, or was it, no, it was, I just looked. One
It,
chapter, the Town Hose story, was
right?
published in Harper's, but otherwise it was not a serialized work, right? So
No,
it's already like we're talking about a big book.
yeah.
hmm.
Um,
But still, this was at a time where people had the attention span to read a
yeah,
book.
people
So
actually read. Yeah, the halcyon days.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of brilliance isn't recognized in the moment. You know,
yeah.
it's like
Mhm.
only on looking back that people rediscover it, you know.
I mean, you could mark it down to bad marketing because that does happen, but like I
Mhm.
don't think that's what happened there. It's like I don't think it caught the attention of the people of the time for some reason. There was something about it that
I mean,
either
it's pretty
repelled them.
avant-garde,
Yeah.
even reading
I
it
mean,
now,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
like I said, it's like barely a book. Like
Yeah.
it's like this like emergent treatise.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
could
yeah.
reorder almost every single chapter and it would still be a good book and you could read it coherently.
Yeah.
Well, right, it's not narrative fiction in the way that you normally would expect from a novel. That's kind of what I meant earlier when I'm like it's almost bookended by the narrative part of it, but everything in the middle is an exposition and essays and things that meditative like philosophical treatises, you know.
Yeah, it's like it's what's the catchy phrase for this? Like ergodic fiction,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like this kind of like cluster of work that's like distributed and not necessarily linear.
Right.
yeah,
I've,
yeah,
I've
but
been I've been I've been accused of that.
There are worse insults to have thrown
Oh,
your way,
I
but
don't consider it an insult. I'm like, yeah, that's what I intended.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
I
I've
get,
always wondered. I mean, I don't think we can answer this question, but I always wondered, like, why did that book just not take off?
Hmm.
I mean,
Because it's
maybe
such a
just
great book.
being ahead of its time.
Might be.
I've also heard it described as being kind of like part of the transcendental movement, which I guess would have been kind of radical at the time. Maybe people
Right,
hadn't really caught on yet, you know.
right.
Um, uh, so that I mean, there's that element to it. Um, but yeah, I
I think
mean,
there's an unbelievability factor there too, just a little bit for some people, for landlocked
Hmm.
people. It's
yeah.
like, oh, a whale would never attack a boat. Well, yeah, it would. It does.
Right.
It
And he
happens.
Hmm.
addresses that in the book too.
Yeah,
Is
Yeah.
like, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
But that's why everybody's like flipping their lids nowadays because the killer whales are attacking boats. Like this is a new thing.
right.
Yeah.
They're like
Comrade whales
end times,
destroying
man, end
billionaire
times. I'm like,
yachts.
this is
It's
nothing new.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be the sperm whales that were doing it, but
Can you blame them?
no.
Yeah, for real, right? This is
Yeah.
like nature fights back. Yeah, I mean, I also wonder too how out of step Moby Dick was at the time of publication with just the general reading trends at the time.
Hmm.
And I say that because I think, I mean, it's a pretty, it's brilliance aside, like it's an incredibly intellectually sophisticated book, plus this kind of avant-garde or unusual structuring of the text. Plus, I mean, I mean, there's some serious and direct criticisms of Christendom, of Christianity. Um, and it seems to me that my guess would be that it just was not. It's a novel out of time,
Hmm.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it emerged before the population was sort of, I think, ready for it.
Yeah.
Um,
But you could argue there's commentary against colonialism in there as well.
oh,
And
for
yeah.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, even just the comments about Queequeg about like, basically about how like he saw behaviors in Queequeg that, despite his blackened primitive heart or whatever he describes it as, like far outshone, the any of the Christian behaviors he saw witnessed.
Right.
Um, there's plenty of that. There's kind of this like extremely egalitarian perspective of religion in the
Yeah.
book as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also
It
it's
might have
not,
been too early. Yeah. Too
yeah,
early.
like it feels too, yeah, too early. Um, and again, like most kind of paradigm shifting works, also feels like the kind of thing that showed up and people probably didn't know what to make of it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of the egalitarian nature of it, I mean, before they embark from Nantucket, they're in New Bedford, and there's a church that all the seamen attend. It's called
Hmm.
Seamen's Bethel, and it doesn't really matter what their faith actually is. I think Queequeg actually attends as well. Um, and did you have a chance to go there, Joe, when you were in Nantucket?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. So this is a real place. I mean, this was a
You can go
real.
to the church.
Yes, there's a church in New
Amazing.
Bedford, and it's called Seaman's Bethel, and it's actually a museum now
Hmm.
dedicated to Moby Dick. And in the book, the preacher is standing like on a ship's bow inside the
Hmm.
church. So the pulpit is actually shaped like the bow of a ship. And that wasn't the case in Melville's time, but the church actually existed.
Hmm.
And in the years since, they've actually built the pulpit out to look like a ship's bow. And you can go up there and be like standing on it and stuff. So
Oh, this is so
it,
cool.
it's one of those like wild things that I love where, it's based on a real place in the book, but then they crafted something within the
Yeah.
place to make it
Yeah.
match the book, you
Yeah.
know? It's kind of like with the Sherlock Holmes stories. Like when Conan Doyle wrote Holmes, there was no 221B Baker Street, but eventually they built out enough that that number was in there, so that's
Hmm.
now a museum dedicated to Sherlock Holmes, and it's supposed to be like preserved as it was when he was there, to the point that people visiting actually think Sherlock Holmes was a real person.
Of course, of course.
Wow.
But yeah, if you're ever back in the southeastern Massachusetts, Joe, and Leah, I suppose you'll probably have an
Yeah, this is
opportunity.
we're talking about this, and I'm like thinking, oh man, when I play hooky on like a Wednesday from work, I'm totally going to do this. I'm going to do the Moby Dick tour of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah, next time I go back to Nantucket, I will definitely be visiting there, but it's been a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean New Bedford's more on the mainland, but it's kind of out of the way, and the museum itself is really cool. And then they have a whaling, more generally like a whaling museum right next to it
Hmm.
as well. So, um, but it's super cool to just stand in there and see that pulpit, because it's um, that just that part of the book for me was great, and then to learn that they actually made something to look like that in the place where that scene took place is just great, just great.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, so I heartily recommend it. Anybody that's within driving distance to New Bedford or visiting Massachusetts, check it out. I've also heard the argument that Moby Dick as like a proto form of cosmic horror. I don't know too much about this interpretation of it, but it is something I've heard. And I was kind of thinking about that, Joe, when you were describing your trip, or your time spent in the North Pole.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, I could kind of see that, like especially with that whiteness aspect and the snow
Oh
covered.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like it wasn't, it was okay. There was the last episode, the last season of True Detective with
Hmm.
Jodie Foster, that took place up north in the North Pole. And they got into the whole thing of like the long night and how
Hmm.
weird it makes people. And I thought
Hmm.
that was cool. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, it does. I've been there. I've been that guy.
Yeah,
Um, so that there's that aspect to it, which is something more people are learning about, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
which is cool, I guess. I guess. I wouldn't wish it on anybody unless they were ready. I wish it on
Sure.
everybody if they're ready though. So that's all I'll say.
yeah.
If you can go spend a long period of time in the Arctic Circle, do it.
This is yes. This is a. I'm it. A brief Leah Prime aside, like one of the, I have a huge preoccupation with trying to do a solo Arctic trip, and the first step to that is trying is doing a Greenland crossing,
Hmm.
and it's this personal desire is very much driven by my own kind of, I guess, Keel-esque obsession with like with these, I mean, I would call them almost like primordial chaos, right? These encounters with spaces that are empty and vast and
Hmm.
void, deeply unfriendly to human life.
Hmm.
And like what it means to be in those places for sustained periods. Like what are those
Hmm.
experiences like? Um, and and AP like talking or thinking about Moby Dick through the lens of cosmic horror, to me, like I that feels actually like a very intuitive framing, because again, it's this encounter with, it's a documentation of like the alienation and the
Hmm.
dispossession that comes with these landscapes of being on the water, which is endless and
Hmm.
vast, deeply unfriendly, to the point of abstraction, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
you're just this expanse of water, it's pure abstraction, and it's primordial.
Yeah,
It's like something out of like a, Mesopotamian creation myth where it's just
Yeah.
like water and that's it.
Yeah.
Um
yeah.
and like, so I mean, certainly I haven't And I think the conventional modern life is completely void of any of these kinds of experiences. Like the closest I've come is like solo backpacking in, the wilderness or in the desert or whatever. But to be so separated uh, in such a hostile environment that is also so, I think, visually abstract. To me, it feels like that hits so many deep parts of the psyche. Um, I mean, frankly, like when I read this, I mean, we have Pip in the book, but I'm almost surprised there's not more recounting of like total destabilization or even psychosis among people on some of these boats.
Yeah,
Well,
they're all kind of used to it too. They're all old
Right.
yeah,
salts that are
exactly,
like,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
Like
Um,
survivorship bias, right? Like they all seem great because the people who really couldn't handle it pieced out or died.
exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Like I was just saying earlier, like when you got close to shore, the ones that couldn't handle it went overboard.
yeah,
Hmm.
Those are the guys that freaked out, and those are the guys that were freaking out. You could kind of tell it was coming. After
Yeah.
a
yeah,
while, I started to identify him. I'm like, oh, he's next. you know, he's
Hmm.
like,
yeah.
he's
But
like, yeah, he's gonna go,
I mean,
and then
there's a
he'd
lot
they'd be
of
gone.
there's a lot of circumstances where that kind of thing could happen too, which is like cabin fever, just being like trapped in a remote area, somewhere and just
Oh,
not
I've been
having
there. Yeah.
contact with people. Yeah. So I mean, um, yeah. I mean, it's weird. I have a push and pull with it because I've always lived on the coast. Um, I've always lived where I could be within an hour or two of the ocean, and I can't
Hmm.
imagine ever living somewhere where that's not the case.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the ocean is just such a vital and necessary thing, and I feel so comfortable near it. On that same note, though, I'm not a strong swimmer, and I would be terrified to like be on a boat for a long time because I feel like if I was ever cast off or fell in the water, I'd be done for because you know. Um, but yeah, the ocean uh, inspires terror and it inspires fear, and a lot of that from the unknown depths that where you can't see when you look down into the water. Um, but it's also got this kind of like lulling calmness to it, like a
Yeah.
lulling peacefulness to it. Yeah.
Hmm.
One most awe-inspiring things that have happened early in my life happened to me was I was with my dad and we went out on a boat in the middle of Lake Michigan, which is kind of like a small sea. It's pretty
Hmm.
Right.
darn big. And you literally could not see land wherever you looked. 360, you couldn't see land.
Yeah.
And then it got dark and you couldn't see light. There was no light. We were just like floating in this boat. And my dad was probably fucking with me a little bit too because he turned off all the lights and we were like floating in the darkness. And I'm just like looking around like, this is the darkest I've ever experienced in my life. Like
Hmm.
the water's dark, the sky is dark.
Yeah.
I can't see where I am. There's nobody coming to help us.
Hmm.
And then we turned on the lights and we went back to shore. But yeah, there was like a moment there, like I got this like, whoa, it like really hit me. This is amazing. And I hit that up north too, like a couple of
Oh,
times
for sure.
we'd light down and we would just like float and like look around and like you could see nothing except like the aurora. You could see the aurora, but like
Oh,
Mhm.
it's
there's
so
like
cool.
nothing, like there was nothing as far as you could see in any direction. There's like nothing here but water and an aurora. And
Hmm.
Yeah,
that
and
gets in your
it's
head, man. That's why I tell people
For
do it if you
sure.
can, because you will, hitchhiker, we'll follow you home. Maybe you'll write a book.
yeah. Well, I'm down.
Yeah,
Um, well, the other thing too is with the lack of light pollution. I mean, where you were, that you had the aurora because it was so far north, but being out on the ocean in the South Pacific and in Melville's time, it's
yeah,
like the amount of stars you must be able to see.
yeah, yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. Have you
Yeah,
ever been out like in the middle of the Mojave
Hmm.
at night?
Yep.
Like, oh yeah, so it's like there's like, wait a minute, where did all that come from?
yeah,
Right. Yeah, it's
yeah.
unbelievable.
And
The
you get the
closest
dome
I've had
effect. Did you
is
get the dome effect, Leah?
Yeah.
I don't, what's that? I'm not familiar with that term.
Okay, so if you lay in the middle of the desert
Hmm.
at, like, and you go far enough out that you're not being affected by ambient
Yeah,
light.
you can see the Milky Way and stuff.
You can
Yeah,
see the
yeah.
Milky Way and everything, but if you lay there on the ground and look straight up, you'll start to notice like the stars start to form a dome.
Hmm. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the dome
Yeah,
effect. Yeah.
yeah, okay. I've never heard that term, but so I did a trip through the Yosemite backcountry this summer, up around 12,000 feet over Red Peak Pass, and definitely had this at nighttime when we'd go out because we were camping around a bunch of these little alpine
Yeah.
lakes. No light pollution anywhere. You could full
Right.
starry skies. And yeah, you can see and I assume it's just kind of like I assume it's your brain correctly interpreting
That's what
just
I
the
think it is.
curvature
Yeah.
of the sky,
Yeah.
but normally we don't have to do that at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
So, that process kind of slowly reemerges when we're in that dark sky environment.
Yeah. I was with a Native American friend, and we were laying on the ground, and I was not on drugs or anything, and he wasn't either. And I went, "Whoa!" He's like, "Dome effect, huh?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, how did you know?"
There, there's this is reminding me of this. There's this great book I read a couple years ago. Um, and it's called The Spectral Arctic or Arctic, and it's basically about like visionary dreams and visionary experiences and ghosts and like high strangeness in the polar environment.
Oh
Um,
wait, did you mention this on Blue Sky like a month or two ago or several months ago?
maybe
Somebody
because like
mentioned this book to
it's
me, and they said,
it's
and
it's
I went looking for it. And I found it.
yeah, it's totally worth reading. And
Yeah,
it's both about like reported experiences, but what really captured me was like the visionary dream side of it, like self-reporting
yeah,
of like visionary
yeah,
dreams that people have when in
yeah,
these spaces.
yeah,
And I do think regardless of what in the whatever the woo factor may be about these environments and experiences, I do think that being in these vast spaces, whether you're on a ship or in a desert, fundamentally changes like how your brain processes information and
oh yeah,
creates things and also fills things in.
yeah.
Um, and um, I think there's this excerpt I always think of. It's chapter 25. I have it noted right here, the masthead in Moby Dick. And that book about like visions and dreams in the Arctic reminded me so much of this excerpt where he's describing they're taking turns like sitting up in the crow's nest to look out at the horizon, and it's this like rolling, lulling, um, visionary prose about what it is like to enter this kind of liminal or non-dual space of looking across the ocean. Um, Lulled into such an opium-like listlessness of vacant, unconscious reverie is the absent-minded youth by the blending cadence of waves with thoughts, that at last he loses his identity, takes the mystic ocean at his feet for the visible image of that deep blue bottomless soul pervading mankind and nature, and every strange, half-seen, gliding, beautiful thing that eludes him, every dimly discovered uprising fin of some undiscernible form seems to him the embodiment of those elusive thoughts. Like just how these environments like form and expand consciousness, right? Like these are psychedelic experiences, really.
Yeah.
Shane McCorriston, right? The author.
Yes. Who wrote The
Yeah.
Spectral Arctic? Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have it.
Yeah. It's
I,
great.
I, I think maybe I might have seen you mention it or somebody mentioned it to me, and I went and hunted it down. I found a scanned version of it.
Sweet. Incredible.
Yeah.
I think the author of that, and if it's not the same book, there was an author that covered something similar on Rick Palmer's podcast, Some Other Sphere, a while back. Um, as far as like Arctic specters and things like that.
Hmm.
So I'd have to look that up and see if it's the same guy you're talking about, but it
Here,
was quite a while
I'll
ago.
send you a Dropbox link.
Yeah.
case you want to read it.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, that gets me thinking too, just time-wise. Obviously, this book was written a long time ago, and it's kind of wild to think about um, the way the average person would view the world back then versus now, you know. Um, and I mean, stars are a great example of that, just because if you live anywhere that's heavily populated, light pollution is such that you don't see most of the stars, you know,
Hmm.
You don't
especially if you
even
live in a
realize
city,
until
you
you
know.
see, until you get
Oh
like
yeah.
way up in the elevation, or like in the desert where it's like crisp and clean and clear.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then
I
you're
mean,
like, what am I looking at?
yeah,
in many respects, a modern life is effectively a simulated life because
Yeah,
everything we interface with, of course, is like plastic.
yeah,
Everything we touch, everything we look at, and then kind of having these unmodulated um, encounters with nature. Uh, I mean, they're few and far between. And I mean, on other podcasts, I've spoken about my own experiences with like emergence or emergent experiences. And for me, they've always been deeply intertwined with encounters with nature,
yeah.
right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
yeah,
time living in nature or on retreat in spaces where all of my retreat time is spent either sitting in meditation or in nature in some capacity.
yeah,
Um, and I think that there's this incredible consciousness expanding um, that happens when we encounter nature that we simply don't have in sort of our modern simulacrum.
yeah, yeah. And yet nature can still even intrude upon that when you're not going to look for it, you know. And
yeah,
that's been
Hmm.
my experience is I have animals appear at my front door
Hmm.
while I'm just sitting outside. And I know, Joe, you've talked about similar things.
yeah.
You
I
and I
mean,
both have crow
I've,
friends, so
yeah,
yeah,
I do. I have a murder of crows that basically live in my yard
yeah,
and leave me shiny presents on the porch.
yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah, because I feed
Yeah.
them and I
Yeah.
talk to them.
Yeah. You're friends.
Yeah,
They're allies. Yeah.
yeah. I call them Brother Crow.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, the world is always talking to us.
yeah,
And so much of modernity, I think, is by design meant to disrupt that
yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
mm,
I mean, years ago, I started doing this thing called sitting vigils, where I
Mm.
go out for 4 days with a tarp and a jug of water and no food, and I
Yeah, it's
sit
like
in
a
the
vision
forest.
quest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I do it almost once a year,
Hmm.
sometimes twice a year. Like this year, I did twice.
Hmm.
It's about like what I feel I need. But
Yeah.
one of the things I do these days is younger people, and I say younger, I can say that at 64, when, you know, 20 something and 30 somethings come to me, those are younger people to me.
Yeah.
Um, and they say like they want to do it. And so I basically take them out and they, I show them where I'm going to be. And I said, you know, once a day, this halfway point, I want you to leave a stone on this log so I know you're alive.
Hmm.
Because my only job here is not to teach you anything except to keep, I'm just to keep you alive. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
So, and then and when the people that haven't done it before, when they come back, they can't shut up about like, I didn't know there was so much going on in nature.
Yes.
I'm like, so you shut up and listen to the land finally, huh? They're like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're like, they really
Yes.
get overwhelmed.
Hmm.
Like, you know, the world is talking, like it's always talking. It's just that you live in this box that
Yes.
tries to keep you shut away from it.
Yes. This hyper stimulation box
Yeah,
that
exactly.
basically drones out the sounds of everything else.
Yeah,
mm,
yeah. So, you know, I started seeking these things out years ago, many years ago.
Hmm.
And as I've gotten older, I've like tried to like move my life more to like, that's why I moved up here in the middle of nowhere. It's like move my life more to like having more of that experience and less of the experience sitting around staring at a screen
Oh my
like I am
gosh.
right now.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, you
Because like,
sound so much like me. Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
talk about this all the
well, you
time.
know, like I spent 30 years in Silicon Valley as a programmer, like
Hmm.
Jesus Christ. And I did, I surfed and I did things like I went on the ocean, I fished and all that kind of stuff. So I had more contact with the planet than most people in that situation.
Sure.
Because like I've met some people that was like I was like, whoa, dude, I don't ever want to be you. Um, but but now that I'm up here and like I said, I'm like in the middle of nowhere. I'm basically mostly retired. I still come back and do consultancies every once in a while because people ask me to, but
Hmm.
mostly I'm retired. I jokingly, only half jokingly, refer to myself as a recovering technologist.
Hmm.
But that's what I am.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
here to
yeah.
recover.
I totally get it. I walked away from a huge professional career like 2 years ago, after an emergent experience. I still work in tech a little bit, but
Yeah,
my only objective since then, and really the impetus for us to be moving to a very small hamlet in rural Massachusetts, is to make um, the normal state of lived life that of the mystic, and the and reaching my hand into the technology world versus living in the technology world and occasionally able to reach into
there you
like
go.
the anima mundi.
Yeah.
um, and I think, despite being a technologist, I have a lot of strong opinions, generally negative, about the role of technology, particularly in disrupting and destroying not just our connection to the natural world and our connections to each other, but also like the organic emergence of like creativity and creative thought, and like encounters with nature. And yeah, I mean, I think about and reflect on this a lot because I feel like these spaces, especially with the advent of things like work from home and people being remote through the pandemic, it feels to me like the encroachment of technology onto our lives has become so totalistic that there's like virtually zero spaces where it does not has not taken over,
Hmm.
and has completely silenced as a result like any sort of interfacing with the natural world.
Absolutely. And so that's why one of the things I've kind of devoted my life to now that I'm older is accepting my role as an elder
Hmm.
because I
Yeah, an
am
initiated adult.
an initiated adult and then
Yeah.
and I'm to be here for the younger people that are looking for something else.
Hmm.
And a lot of the people I get are from the tech sector
Of course.
and they've heard through the grapevine like, but this guy used to be like this crazy tech guy, but now he's doing something else. You should go check him out,
Hmm.
and
There's life after computers.
there is life after computers, and I can, I'm a perfect example of that. I always knew there was something else, and like I said, about 2014, I like kind of made a major break and
Hmm.
just like went and sequestered myself in a Zen monastery and just lived as a monk and really actually thought about becoming a Zen monk
Oh
and
yeah, that
had
it's
the conversation because you have like
oh yeah.
the conversation at the end is like, is this your exit interview or are you onboarding?
Yep.
And mine
Yeah.
turned out to be an exit interview because I said, I think I'd do better living among the people in real life than to
Hmm.
sequester myself over here and do this. And he agreed with me. He's like, yeah, yeah, I can see that. You'd probably do better at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, you could be telling my story. I set a Zen retreat over Christmas, New Year's 22 to 23. And when I came off that retreat, I was committed to the bit. I was ready to take the vows. I was ready to become a lay priest. I was ready to completely unyoke myself from the trappings of technology. Um, yeah, and I think, I think a lot about too, like what you're referencing is like there's the mage and the sage, right? Where you have the option to either go into the world and interface with it and bring these ideas, or you have the option to kind of in solitude pursue these practices without attempting to like interfere with the world. And I do think,
Right.
you know, part of the knock-on effect of like the poly crisis is more and more people seem fairly attuned to how dissociated we are from the mechanics and experiences of the natural world.
Yeah. I mean, I always
Yeah.
end up in weird places. Like if you read my book, Complete,
Mhm.
I have this weird knack for ending up in the right places I'm looking for without knowing that that's what I'm doing, with the
Yes.
people that I'm looking for without knowing that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's
So
magic, man. Magic's
exactly,
real.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I can say that to you guys, but like most people will be like, "What are you talking about?" One of my neighbors is John Zerzan.
Oh my God, I love John Zerzan.
Yeah, he's right down
Yeah,
the
he's
road.
amazing. No kidding. Tell him he had probably an outsized impact on like 14-year-old Leah's brain
I
25
will
years
tell him.
ago. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him, and I used to catch him on Coast to Coast AM.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw him at the mailbox, and I locked up the brakes on the motorcycle. I'm like, "You're John Zerzan." He just kind of looked at me like, "Oh shit, what am I getting into?"
Yeah,
And
like,
so
are
I
you a
like,
Fed?
yeah, so I blasted off some names because I know people at
Hmm.
one of his publishers,
Yeah.
Autonomy Media.
Feral House?
No,
Okay.
Autonomy Media.
Yeah, right on.
And I said I was a friend with Hakeem Bey, and blah, blah, blah. I
Oh,
started
sweet.
spouting out
Yeah,
names.
yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah." And then turned out he had heard of me. Like when we finally talked, he was like, "Oh, I've heard of you." So I don't know what that
Amazing.
means, but
That's cool. You have street cred with John Zerzan. It's pretty
yeah.
rad.
So like, but I ended up on you like ended up down the road from John Zerzan without knowing that's what I moved to.
Hmm.
That's not. I didn't know that's what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just lined up. I mean, that's like, right, like that's sort of in conversation about magic, right? Like the fewer as long as your intention is very clear, the fewer parameters you put around it, the better, because your outcome is like you may not necessarily know what the outcome's going to be as much as you know what the intention you want to reach.
Right.
Leaving that field as broad as possible for that desired outcome, I think is optimal practice. You had no idea he was there, but moving up
Yeah, but
there,
I've
you're
noticed
certainly
that if I
open to
live
this
wiggle
stuff.
room, even in my art, if I leave enough wiggle room for chaos to occur,
Yeah,
that's where
Slack.
it comes. That's the creativity
Yeah,
spot. Boom. That's where it
yeah,
comes from.
yeah. Yeah, you leave Slack open and magic happens.
Yeah.
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 Or then you find out that John Zerzan's your neighbor.
Well, you could play that like I think the para weird version of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon is 6 degrees of Joe Matheny because I
Did you read
think
complete?
what?
Did you read
No,
complete?
I haven't read
Okay.
complete yet. No.
Okay. So when you read that, some people actually tell me they don't believe it. And I'm like, that's why I haven't written it until now, because I knew people like you would say it's unbelievable
Hmm.
because it happened to me and it was unbelievable, but it happened.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's
Uh,
what I'm saying. You could throw out any name, and within 6 degrees, we could probably track it back to
We're
you
gonna
somehow.
I mean,
But
the thing about Zerzan, I mean, real quick. So you read the book, you'll find out. But like, I just like up and like pulled up stakes in Chicago and just moved to California for a lot of weird reasons, which the book talks about.
hmm
And then I was driving from Big Sur because I stopped in Big Sur and I saw the Henry Miller Museum, his old house, and then I
cool.
saw the cabin that Ferlinghetti owned where Kerouac wrote Big Sur, which was still there at the time. So I hiked in and saw that,
Hmm.
and then I'm on my way to Berkeley. I was moving to Berkeley,
Yeah, right on.
and I stopped in Santa Cruz, a town I'd never heard of, and met these people at a coffee shop who convinced me that maybe I should hang out there. And so I found an apartment and moved in and found out that all the people I was looking for lived in that damn building that I was in. Like my downstairs
Incredible.
neighbor was Timothy Leary's secretary from Millbrook.
Incredible.
My upstairs neighbor was friends with Albert Hoffman, Gordon Wasson, like those the people they
Yeah,
like
those guys.
those guys. That
Yeah,
was the building. It was a building full of these people, which I
incredible.
jokingly used to call Anarchy Arms. I
Yeah,
named the
this
building.
is this is like Philip K. Dick stuff, right? Like
Well,
him
yeah,
talking
and
to,
it
yeah,
started
like
because of Philip K. Dick. So
yeah,
if you read the book, you'll
amazing.
find out. It all started because I went looking for Valis because Robert Anton Wilson told me I should read it,
Hmm.
which I had
yeah,
met
and then
him.
right,
I
and
had
then you
met
ended
him in
up meeting him
Chicago.
through all those people,
Yeah.
right?
I met
So
him in Chicago, and then I
yeah,
met those people because he set me on the path. And then I
Right.
found out, like my neighbors, like I said something about Robert Anton Wilson. He's in L.A. And they're like, "Oh, but he's moving here. His kids live here." I'm like, "What the fuck?
Yes. What is going on?
What's going on?" So like all these people like got together in the late '80s in Santa Cruz. For some reason, we all ended up there, and
Hmm.
my spiritual friends used to joke, it's like, well, it's in the name, Saints Crossing. It's like, okay, whatever. I wouldn't categorize myself as a saint because I was not back then, but or now. But
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
but
it's
that kind of stuff happens if you put yourself in a position.
Yep.
It's like put yourself in a completely random situation.
Yeah,
Completely
and
random.
increase your surface area.
yeah,
Good way
Yeah.
to put it.
yeah. Well, it reminds me of my favorite quote from Moby Dick, which I don't have pulled up here, so I'll try to maybe do it from
Such a
memory.
bad
But
student. I have all these little quotes in a notepad so I can reference them and read them.
well, this was one that I've often tried to memorize, which is the maybe you have it too, Leah, in your notes, but
Oh boy.
I have to pull it up because it's too good a quote. But this kind of yeah, okay. This kind of is like the whole synchronicity thing and like cosmic jokes in a nutshell. There are certain queer times and occasions in this strange mixed affair we call life, when a man takes the whole universe for a vast practical joke, though the wit thereof he but dimly discerns, and more than suspects that the joke is at nobody's expense but his own.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
The most profound things that have ever popped into my head have made me laugh hysterically.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. That's why I've often felt like Holy Mountain
Mm-hmm.
movie,
Yeah.
Jodorowsky,
Yeah.
like the very end of that movie is almost like a joke, but it's like this ecstatic moment where you see him, out on the mountain, and it's kind of like pulling back, the camera pulls away, and you see everything laid out for you. It's this like ecstatic, like hilarious moment in a way of revelation, and I've always felt like that was one of the best like visual examples of the exposure of divine truth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's actually pretty funny. It's an ecstatic moment. It's a revelation. You know.
Well, for me,
Yeah.
when I hit a divine truth, um, it causes me to laugh with joy,
Yeah.
which is a whole different thing than laughing for other reasons. And you
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of like reflect on that, and you're like, we often laugh at we often laugh at the discomfort of others. We find that funny
Yes.
for some reason.
Suffering.
Yeah, suffering and like irony and like all the things that we laugh at in this culture. But very rarely do you ever just purely laugh out of pure joy.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
But I've experienced it, man. It's the best feeling in the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
cosmic joke, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's like Robert Anton Wilson said, like the enlightened take things lightly too, right? That there's always this sort of levity to everything,
yeah,
especially the most important and serious things.
yeah. Because that's the stuff that makes you laugh the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're not you're not laughing at the guy that slipped on the banana peel. You're laughing because I think the closest I can get to it is you're laughing at how mind-numbingly obvious it was, and why didn't you see it before?
Yes. The
Yeah.
scales fall from your eyes.
Yeah, and you start laughing because it's like joy. It's
Yeah.
like, why didn't I see this before?
Right. The thing you were looking for was always there, and you just had to look at it a little differently. You know.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you
Um,
just start laughing out of pure joy, which, you know, the people that come back from the vigils I take them on sometimes they discover that for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and they're overwhelmed and laughing and crying and doing everything at the same time. I'm like, you don't have to tell me everything. It's not for me.
Yeah.
well,
But
that's a
if you want
lesson to
Yeah.
to,
learn
And
too.
I'll listen.
it's ineffable. Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
wrap language around most of it. It is
Yeah,
it is purely experiential.
yeah. The best you can do is laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. um, well, I'm not really sure where to pivot from there. I think that's actually I got that like tingly feeling from the laughter conversation that usually feels like we can't top that, but maybe we can. I don't know. Do you got anything else, Leah? Do you have any other quotes that you wanted that you had jotted down.
I mean, this is a tough act to follow, right? Um, but again, like, and it's probably because I'm so fucking magic brained right now. I'm like deep in the middle of Eliphas Levy's book and like
Oh wow.
my own practice and like reading through all these old esoteric texts. And like one of the quotes that I think of a lot, like my favorite quote from the book, um, is real strength never impairs beauty or harmony, but it often bestows it. And in everything imposingly beautiful, strength has much to do with magic. And I bring this up sort of just to circle back to how I kind of began the conversation this evening, is like viewing Moby Dick as a mystical text
Yeah.
and these ideas and I mean in many respects this is not just um conceptual in the book, like the book itself is an example of the limitations of language, right? These chapters of
Mhm.
just recounting like these autistic exegeses on whales and all the creatures in the sea, and so much time and energy is put forth into these chapters, but they still don't capture like the ineffability of these creatures and of what is actually happening in the ocean. There's a line in chapter 24, for what are the comprehensible terrors of man compared to the interlinked terrors and wonders of God, right? And I think that also touches nicely on this notion of cosmic horror, this
Mhm.
idea of like unknowability, as being part of the divine, and God or the divine as being great and terrible, like not this gentle, sweet, um turn the other cheek kind of Christianity, but like, you know, burning of the bush, you know, great and terrible kind of encounters with the divine and
Mhm.
with God that seems sort of at the heart of every mystical tradition, really, and certainly to me seem at the heart also of Moby Dick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that nature being awesome in its original meaning of the term, like awe-inspiring and terrifying,
Hmm.
um, but but also also sublime at the same
Yeah.
time.
And
Yeah,
and unknowable.
yeah,
Like reckoning with this idea that there are things that are unknowable to us.
yeah.
That
And
might
even
be
if they
why
are knowable, they're
Moby Dick
not.
didn't do well. Because it was taking the first steps towards cosmic horror, and people are like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, unknowable, and even if it is knowable, not able to be communicated effectively. You
Yeah,
know.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because you have to experience it in order to understand the description.
yeah.
yeah,
Words are
there's
Yeah,
never going to completely
participatory
justify it
knowledge.
or describe it, or because it's a complete enveloping experiential thing. And then the conclusion, you know, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, that last part is ineffable.
Hmm.
yeah,
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 And it's only meant for you.
right,
yes.
yeah. And any attempt to describe it is, you know, stabbing at meaning from hell's heart
Yeah.
ineffectually.
Yeah. Yeah, we can only kind of gesture at it,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. Most of the whale is always going to be underwater. So,
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think this has been I think
I
this
think we
has
tore
been
it
as
apart.
much of a productive chat as I thought it would be. Um and as I said at the top of it, I don't know how many listeners are gonna join us for this journey, but like Moby Dick itself, it's something that has to be experienced at the right time, I guess. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll inspire people to read Moby Dick.
Yeah.
hopefully, here's hoping.
Hopefully, it's
Yeah.
totally worth the time and energy. Like it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. I mean, you could even just use Moby Dick for bibliomancy without the context. That might be fun. And
Very cool.
like I said, there are audio versions of it. You can look on YouTube and there are full audio versions. You can run it in the background and listen to it if you want, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so
You could attend a live reading too. There are
yeah, people
places
do that.
that
I
they
would
do
love,
the full reading straight through over whatever it takes, like
Oh
20
wow.
hours, 24 hours. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's
That
about
would be a
24.
Wow.
cool initiatory experience, right?
That
Yeah,
reminds
and
me of
they
Andy Kaufman reading The Great Gatsby from front to back in one
right.
standing,
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. It's like that, but more.
but
right.
more.
Yeah.
But I know they do that in some places in Massachusetts. They may actually do it in New Bedford, where you can show up and just take a turn at it and read part of it, and they read it straight through. So I know they do it all over, but I'm sure there's one closer to where the book started. But uh yeah, yeah. I mean, any way you want to engage with this book is worthwhile, I think. So
Mhm.
and to any listener that's hung out with us this long, thanks so much for listening. And thank you both for joining me on our virtual Pequod journey across
Yes.
the
The
ocean.
the alchemical vessel.
Yeah.
Yes.
um
Thanks, AP. Thanks, Joe.
yeah. If people want to follow either of you online, we'll start with Leah. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Leah Prime, LeahPrime. You can also find me on Blue Sky, leahprime.bsky.com.
Yeah,
Something, yeah.
something like that.
Dot app,
Yeah,
I
Dot
think,
social.
maybe.
dot app,
Yeah,
whatever it
Yeah.
is.
yeah,
And then I also do have a website, Leah Prime, LeahPri.me. And that's where you can generally find, links to wherever I've spoken, articles I've written, things like that.
Cool.
sweet. All right, Joe. Where can people find you?
I've severely limited in my online presence. I'm down to two things, um, or three things. My website, which is where you can find everything else, which is JOSEPHMATHENY.com. And that links out to the two places that you will actually find me interacting, which is Substack and Blue Sky. And I've ditched everything else.
Oh,
Yeah,
good for you.
there's too much out there. There
Just
really
too
are too
much,
many.
man.
There is.
Plus, I don't want to support people like Zuckerberg and Elon. I don't, and like if you know anything about the attention economy, you know
Hmm.
that the coin of the realm is attention, and I don't want to give
Yes.
them any of mine or help them generate any.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here, here. So, all right. Well, thanks again to both of you, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
We
Take
will.
care, gentlemen.
All right.